Hello, you've decided to join me for more ChainLink technical analysis. Well, that's good thinking. That's some Abraham Chain Lincoln. So let's just dive straight on into the charts and see what's been going on, shall we? So here we are, 24-hour Link versus USD Coinbase chart. You can see the current price here is $4.64. We've had lows on this Gregorian calendar day of $4.54 and highs of $4.76. And that's been quite good because, you know, as we said yesterday, that we wouldn't want to get in directly at the prices where they were operating at that time. If we were still looking to try and take on longs at that time, we would have looked towards $4.54 or so for our entry, and we've got that today, so that's very good if that's what you were looking to do. Indeed, if you were looking to do that, it probably means that you took profit up there towards that $5 level, in which case you deserve 2 pats on the back. And I would be really wary as well in managing my risk here, because what could be happening is we could be looking towards getting in a higher low, having set in a higher high on the daily time frame. And this is just the natural sort of way that the markets operate. Now, if that did happen, I would also caution everybody to look out for divergences, because across all 3 oscillators down below, you would see bearish divergence appearing. Now, bearish divergence in the face of making all-time highs, you know, you want to see how the all-time highs pan out, you know, and look towards your other levels before for establishing whether or not we would actually just, you know, if the enthusiasm would taper off and trend to the downside, in which case you'd have this Fibonacci retracement here, which goes up as high as our highs, starting from the previous swing low down here. And you can see that if the prices were to drop on down here and go down below the 236 Fibonacci retracement, then you could be looking at coming all the way down as far here as the 382, where we have this other horizontal line here in around that $3.70 area. And I'd be cautious around there. I'd look to see how things pan out if that's the case, because you'd be looking at coming down here, and would you be sitting it? Would that just be wicks, or would you be sitting in would it actually close down here and you sit in a new low compared to this one? Would we just end up negating that low and thinking it was part of the upward trend, and would we start looking towards this area to see if we can actually use it as support at $3.50? And if not, then of course, you know, you're back on looking down towards these other areas again. So you would, just to be cautious, you know, just to be aware that these things can happen, and that on the way there'll be plenty of signposts letting you know what direction you're traveling in at the time. For instance, these magnolia lines, the previous highs, previous lows, all that sort of thing. But that's just pointing out, that's all off the back of pointing out that there's this divergence here. Now, what can we see though on the 4-hour chart if we look towards it? If we consider this to be an upward trend, then you've got this sort of this would be your high over here, comparing it to this high over here. And well, let's just get out the old crayon, shall we? You can see here that would be like class B bullish divergence. You know, we're not getting up any higher. That's hard to do when you're in this sort of extended so-called overbought zone here, and you know, it's hard to go much higher than 100% of anything. You know, really it is. So I'm going to take that with a grain of salt. I am, because we're up here in this area looking at highs, you know, all-time highs, but we do have it across the board here as well. There's some class A divergence, and then on the RSI, what have we got? Well, this is trending up the way. Oh, that's gone all funky. That's trending up the way here as this was trending up, so we don't have divergence there, and I wouldn't consider this to be, I mean, this is consolidating sideways currently. If anything, on the 4-hour chart, I wouldn't look towards this area for divergence. But if you insisted and you put a gun to my head, I could say that between this high and this high, that there is bearish divergence across all 3 of the oscillators down below. And I could say that, pardon me, then between this low and this low, that there isn't any other sort of divergence, whatever. You know, we're not gonna get our knickers in a twist about a little consolidation period on the 4-hour chart though. But you can see this other stuff exists. So I would, you know, just adds to the story from before about where you'd be looking for across a longer term should the prices go down. And you know, not where you'd be looking, but sorry, well, yeah, the direction you'd be looking. But in terms of prices and whatnot, we have that laid out here in terms of these horizontal lines, really. let's get off of Coinbase because you can spend too long on Coinbase. No, believe me. Let's look at Binance and see what we've got here. If it's the same story, yes, it's the same story. I don't think we really need to look at anything more. Other than, again, of course, if you're new to the channel, to point out that Binance has got all-time highs being set in here quite nicely because we never actually got up higher than. The record thing is so annoying. Sorry, it's my screencast record thing. $4.58 was really where our previous high was, and you can see that we've come up here and we've set in other highs going towards that $5 level, so that's very good. Looking at green sky thinking, and in terms of the supply here, in terms of people who were thinking, oh, I'm going to get out of my position if it ever comes back up to where I got in at, the fool sort of, I'm a fool, I'll regret it, I'll just lordy, let me get back out. They've already would have sold off their position, so that's good. Of course, we're still looking at that potentially being the case on Coinbase, and all I really mean is in terms of supply there. When you get past this here in the last sort of hurdle in terms of supply, the last big supply depot gets run out, then the demand can start to outstrip the supply, in which case you could start looking towards blue sky thinking and where could the prices go next. And by the way, where the prices could go next, my initial target in terms of the USD price would of course be $5.50 if you're interested. But I'm not a financial advisor, none of this is financial advice. Now I think that's really everything we need to look at. Of course we can do the same trick again and look at the 4 hours here on this chart. Not really going to particularly bother with that. Yeah, that's fine. It speaks for itself. In fact, I spoke for it when I was looking at the Coinbase chart a minute ago. Let's just look at it versus Bitcoin, and what can we see here? Well, we're setting in this higher low here. That's all jolly good. That's all to the good. Actually, let's go back up to the 24-hour. We don't need the 4 hour for that just now. You can see we've got bearish divergence here between these highs across all 3 of the oscillators down below. So there's a slight warning sign versus Bitcoin. Suppose you could look at the Bitcoin dominance chart and you could say, oh look, we're consolidating sideways here, and maybe we're going to actually start to trend up towards the upside here as part of this overall upward trend that we've had ever since the you remember when everybody was going on about how altcoin season started? That was here. Do you remember when everybody was like, oh, altcoin season's really definitely full on going to happen? That was here. That was back whenever we were saying on the channel that look out for this because here's a word of warning to people who are talking about altcoin season when the Bitcoin dominance starts going up, of course. But then you're looking at ChainLink, it's slightly different because ChainLink, of course, if we go over to the weekly, you can see quite clearly it's always performed very well against Bitcoin. So it's like ChainLink's one of those outliers where the dominance chart I tend not to look at quite so much in terms of it. But just to be clear, in terms of Bitcoin, we've got a nice green bullish engulfing candle the previous day. We could have some upward side action now that could translate, of course, to some downward action here on this price. Now what I would expect to happen overall is to set in a higher low. I could be looking down towards sort of 45,000 satoshis or so for that. We're up here now. Of course we could just continue to trend to the upside, of course, not financial advice, not financial advisor, all that sort of stuff. But I'd be looking down towards this 21 EMA on the daily time frame as a result of this bearish divergence playing out, or whatever that we could potentially have there, and potentially actually just sort of go on and ignore that in the longer term. Because should Bitcoin go up, then I think ChainLink will also get buoyed by the market overall. But then should Bitcoin go up, then I feel like if we look over at the CME chart, that we could actually go up here, break above the 200 simple moving average, come up, then come back down at the very least to retest it as support, having broken up above it again, and that would be translated across the board on the markets, and that could actually see the spot prices drop back down below 9,000 again afterwards. So what would that do in terms of ChainLink? Well, that would be a very good boon to the Bitcoin pairing. And in terms of the US dollar pairing, well, what we're really looking for is what we started off talking about here in the channel, and what we've been looking at for days. Really, we need to maintain overall, it's highly desirable to maintain the prices above $4.30, which is where I've got this blue line. It's where I'm kind of mostly looking at as well in terms of the prices really overall, and to get our next the next phase here, next entries, of course, as well. You also have this magnolia line in around the $4 flat area. I'd be looking at both of those really before starting to turn bearish on this asset. And I know that that's the guts of a dollar movement downwards from the previous high, but what you're going to do. This is trading for you, and then I'd be looking towards the upside again after that, and I'd be hoping for that $5.50 line. Now, I'm not going to pull down my pants, shit on the floor, and get swifty quite yet, but you know, overall things are fairly positive in the face of this bearish divergence here that we're looking at. And of course, I could go down to the 4-hour time frame on this chart, but I think when you're pairing two volatile assets against each other, and then you go down to volatile time frames and everything else, I mean, you really you get to the point where you start poking yourself in the eyes. So, you know, what you're going to do, let's see how this all pans out. I think I've more or less covered everything for this asset for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And before I go, I want to say to everybody that I'll probably not be making a video tomorrow. So word of warning to everybody, but I'm going to be away for most of the day. Now, if you've just watched this video through for the first time, if you've just joined us here for the first time and you've watched this video the whole way through to the end, then you're a sort of special type of hero. And I want to send my love out to you and say thank you so much for all of that. Welcome to the family. Like and subscribe and all that good jazz, and I'll see you in the next one, which is most likely going to be Sunday or Monday, to be honest with you, at this rate, but we'll see how it goes. Who knows, might do one tomorrow, I kind of doubt it. Thank you so much, I'll see you next time.